Hello. We're going to talk a little bit about the analytics of the Vlogbrothers and Complexly Networks here, because we have the opportunity to do that, and we're talking a lot about subscriptions and sub boxes these days, and I do want to give some context to that. I'm not going to talk about my opinions on the sub box changes because I made a video about that on Vlogbrothers, and you can go check it out. And probably you're coming from that video to watch this one. So here is the traffic sources for everybody on the Vlogbrothers network. So we have a bunch of different channels that are all with SciShow, Crash Course, Healthcare Triage, Explanations, Animal Wonders, new shows that you probably haven't heard of like Nature League, and how much the different things matter to the different kinds of channels. So right here we're seeing where all of our impressions, our views, our watch time comes from. So we're actually looking at watch time right now. This is basically the exact same graph for views, but that's a little bit less of an abstract number. So we see that this base level here is our suggested videos, and we see that this red bit here is the browse features, and we got search and channel pages and other YouTube features and etc. So our biggest hunk at 41% is suggested videos. That's usually about the same for a lot of YouTube channels. Search is a big piece for Crash Course specifically, and to some extent SciShow. Browse features, though, is where subscriptions is hiding. And it's really frustrating that subscriptions and home aren't on this as a separate category. I don't really know why. I guess it's so that you could see that the browse features being sort of like what YouTube is doing for you is the category of like people actively on their sort of like front page home experience of YouTube, whether that's subscriptions or home. But I find it frustrating because then we have to say, well, 38%, and then we click on browse features, and then we see what percent is home and what percent is subscriptions. So 65% is home, so 65% of the 35% is coming from the home page, and 27% of that, I forgot the number already, but 27% of that is coming from subscriptions. So that's like not a ton. But I mean, look at it in terms of views, it is a ton. It's 2 million views, almost 3 million views. So it is a big deal. And you can also see the click-through rates in those places. The click-through rates for home are higher than they are for subscriptions. And this is probably what YouTube is looking at and saying, like, home is doing a better job than subscriptions getting people what they want. They're more likely to click on a video that we serve to them on home than on subscriptions, because subscriptions is going to be so much content and not really well divided. So that's one part of it. Another part of this, let's look at the Vlogbrothers analytics for, oh God, which one was it? It's not that one. I've got a bunch of other things up here. I put it right in the middle, you guys. That makes a lot of sense. Let's look at the Vlogbrothers breakdown between subscriptions and home. So these are the browse features over the last, so I don't know what's going on here. This don't ignore this green area, that's a glitch. But we've got so that purple is subscriptions. And you'll see, and this is 2014, this is 2013, you'll see that this seems to be on the decline. In fact, it seems to be really on the decline lately. And it would be interesting, let's just go ahead and type in SciShow here and see if that holds up at all across a different channel. Now this is going to take forever to load, so we're going to cut now. I have made this display slightly differently for SciShow. Most of this data is not useful down here because this is where we started to upload 7 videos a week, so there was a big jump in viewership, unsurprisingly. But what we see is from that time, this is a very bumpy graph of how home is doing for us, because that really depends on individual videos. But it's a pretty steady decline in terms of what subscriptions is doing for us. So I think that YouTube might be concerned about the fact that subscriptions seems to be being a less useful product and people not using it as much. Now I want to say another thing about subscriptions here, about why they are important beyond just like how, like when and how people get the viewership. And I will say that it's been pretty steady on SciShow. So we've got 9 million views coming from subscriptions here, and we've got 8.5 million views coming from subscriptions here. So it's not that different over the last year or so. Let's check out Healthcare Triage and see how different that is. So again, Healthcare Triage also showing sort of a really significant, actually, decline in views coming from subscriptions. particularly as maybe a percentage of the views coming from home. But again, like these home views are very unstable, whereas subscription views are much more stable. It looks to me like YouTube is worried that the subscriptions product is just not being used as much by people. Unfortunately, we don't have impression data. Even if we did have impression data, that might not be super useful because it wouldn't be like impression per like user. It would just be impression. So there might be more users on the platform, few of them using subscriptions. But we do see a pretty, like, Healthcare Triage sees a really substantial decline. I mean, like, I'm very interested in other people's data. In fact, if you want to share data on this stuff, it's pretty, you can look at this and sort of figure out how I found this data. And I'd love to see that kind of information shared, whether that's at sort of like internally between friends, or if you just want to go ahead and put a hashtag YouTube Analytics on Twitter and show us what your subs impressions and numbers are looking like. You may not be into the impressions beta, so you might not have that data, but hopefully you will be soon. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about why subscriptions are important and a little bit about how they function. So here are two Vlogbrothers videos over here. We've got a video that didn't do well. This video is about red-eyed tree frogs. I don't know, it got 100 and something thousand views, and then we got my marijuana video that probably got close to 300,000 views. And we're often asking, like, what's the difference between those two kind of videos? Well, this is a very clear signal. This is just the data for the day that the video came out. These videos got similar numbers of impressions, though not exactly the same, a little bit more on the marijuana video. But you'll see the impressions click-through rate here is 11.2% on this first day, whereas Red-Eyed Tree Frogs is 6.2%. Now, I'm not saying that that's like a bad thing for the Vlogbrothers channel. Frankly, I think it's good to have content that isn't designed to get a bunch of clicks every once in a while, or even most of the time. That results in, like, you have roughly the same number of impressions, but you have far more viewership and minutes watched. And if you go down here to where those views are happening on this marijuana video, 8% of the subscribers, and this number 555,000 is, at the moment at least, and they say that in the even with this new subscriptions thing, that there will still be those impressions, that these videos won't leave people's subscription feeds. That, like, this number at the moment is a steady number. Like, that's just the people who open subscriptions and my thumbnail is there. So unfortunately, I can't see how that number has changed over time. It may be that people are using subscriptions less, and that's something that's concerning YouTube. But there is this 555,000 number that is going to be roughly the same. And if we look at this video, 536, it may be that John uploaded a little later in the day. It may be that Tuesday just had fewer views or whatever that is. But then you see our click-through rate. So the click-through rate for this video on the subs page is 4.5%, and on the home page is 12.15%, which is actually really high. But this video did better, 8%, almost 9% click-through on subscriptions, and 17% click-through on the homepage. Now, that's signaling to YouTube that it should be sharing it more, and as time goes on, it does indeed share it more. And I have an example of the same phenomenon from SciShow here too, how computers find naked people in photos. This is the kind of thumbnail that people are going to see. And this video that did very poorly, one of our worst videos in a long, long time, Your Asthma and Allergies Aren't Causing Mental Illness, which has both mostly a title problem, I think. I don't think that people thought they were. And so that was a misfire on our part. But yeah, our click-through rate is in the single digits, like 1-2% on browse features, and I did not open the subs versus home tab, but yeah, 1 and 1% here. And then over here on how computers find naked people, we're getting very good click-through rate on suggested videos, which is why this video has continued to grow, because it's doing well on suggestions and in sidebars. And then if you go to browse features, you'll see that it also did quite well with subscribers. Now, it's important to note that this click-through rate is much lower, and always SciShow's click-through rate is much lower than Vlogbrothers. And so you have to sort of ask yourself, like, if every single Vlogbrothers video has a higher click-through rate for both home and subscription, subscriptions. Why do SciShow videos so often do much better than Vlogbrothers videos? And my interpretation of this is that videos aren't necessarily compared across channels. I think they are to some extent, of course, but I think they are also compared internally. And so you look at a SciShow video, like YouTube's algorithm is looking at all SciShow videos, and it's saying, well, this video got better clicks and better watch through. 6 minutes of watch through is very good because this is a longer video than the average SciShow video, not than the average video. I think that like there are lots of reasons why SciShow click-through rates are lower. I think one, it's because they show up more. There are a lot more of them. I think it's also because people who are subscribed to SciShow tend to be subscribed to a lot of channels and sort of have less like deep brand affiliation with SciShow. You also see a lot more impressions here. Oh shoot. Well, none of this data matters at all, you guys. We got to look at just the one day. We got to look at just the 2nd of May, and then this will be actual data that we can compare. So maybe I was all wrong, but no, I wasn't. So obviously, if we just look at the day the video came out, those numbers are a lot higher because they're people who are like, regular viewers. But we see much higher impressions because there are more SciShow subscribers, and also they're more active because they're newer subscribers than Vlogbrothers subscribers, which have been around for 12 years now. But the home is interesting because that's not subscribers. That is YouTube deciding to put that video there. And then if we go to our video that didn't do as well, our allergies video, you'll probably see that it didn't end up on home at all because people weren't clicking on it when it went there. So we have to go to April 27th. Let's see what the impression rate jumps up to here. If we can get into 2 or 3% click-through rates. Nope, we can't. So this is a lesson learned. See, 800,000 impressions just like anything else, but then that's not going to push a lot to home. YouTube's getting some data here and finding that people aren't clicking on it in the way that they they're pushing it to people who are more likely to click on it than in their subscriptions. And so all of this is data that is indicating to YouTube that subscriptions is a less and less useful product. But I also think that subscriptions is kind of supposed to be one thing specifically, and it is a little bit of a contract both with creators and with viewers that they are signing up to see content, and they are signing up to see the content in the way that they expect to see it. That maybe it means that YouTube isn't solving a problem that they could otherwise solve, but sometimes a problem exists and you don't solve it because it is a feature that a lot of people sort of have a cultural expectation of. And also, like, my subscribers, like these people, maybe not the people who clicked on that particular video, but the people who click on these folks who saw, these 29,000 people who saw this Red-Eyed Tree Frog video, and even though it's not a very good title for a video, they clicked on that because they're our super duper core audience that is going to look for our content in the place where we have told them our content is. Now, I understand YouTube's concern about the sort of wane of subscriptions and using a lot of valuable real estate on youtube.com and also on the app to push to subscriptions. But I think that subscriptions is a very important product, and I think that there are ways to refine that product and to make it into a more useful experience that still do not make that an algorithmic experience, that still do not take videos and serve them to people out of order. I talked about that some in my Vlogbrothers video. So thank you for listening and watching this this dive into YouTube analytics. I know that you love it. I like all these numbers, and thanks so much for making Vlogbrothers click-through rates so high and caring a ton about our content and being just great people in this community, and we really appreciate it and are super honored by that. We know that it is unusual and it matters a lot. So thank you. And that's all. Bye-bye.